Health for Life. This is the first ever medical show on television that deals with prevalent health problems and concerns, and they do so in an easy-to-listen-to question-and-answer format. To find out what we're discussing today and to introduce us to the visiting specialists, here is the producer and the host of Health for Life, Dr. Surendra Prasad.
Now, we'll take a moment now and sort of speak about chikungunya. You and I were both speaking to the Chief Medical Officer earlier today, and he was lamenting about a few things. And I think I want you to discuss two things in particular. Make our viewers aware that this mosquito doesn't really travel too far. And so we need to recognize that the persons who are getting the infection have become carriers. So explain to our viewers those two aspects in your bigger discussion on chikungunya.
He's done an excellent job up to now of saying what the problem is. Okay? As I said before, chikungunya is a virus, like dengue, etc. The only difference between chikungunya and influenza is that influenza is an airborne virus. And so it can have very similar symptoms to chikungunya, in fact, except that with the influenza virus, everybody gets it. You only have to be near the person and you'll pick it up. Chikungunya is spread by a mosquito. We call it a vector. Vector just means the way it's transmitted. And you have the vector along in our coastline. And so the mosquito bites in the day as well. It doesn't only bite at night. Now, in order for the mosquito to give chikungunya to someone, he has got to bite someone who has chikungunya virus. And then the virus goes into the mosquito, it multiplies. And then the next person that the mosquito bites, he'll put that virus into that system, into the person. And so if you've got somebody in your household who has got, you've recognized has got chikungunya, or you suspect has got chikungunya, you don't want that person loose in your household. You don't want them loose in the public. You don't want going everywhere, because they're going to spread it. That's the way it's spread. I mean, ideally, get rid of the vector. If we could get rid of the mosquito, we won't have chikungunya. There'll be no problem whatsoever. That's not the real world. We're not getting rid of mosquitoes. We haven't done it since 1945 when we got rid of malaria. So as a means now of trying to control it, each individual has got to realize that if he's got symptoms or she has got symptoms of chikungunya or your child has got chikungunya, you got to prevent the mosquito from biting him. That's one. So he should be sleeping with a netting around him. Wherever he is, he should be in a situation where you're sure that mosquitoes are not around that can bite him and thereby transmit it. And two, if you don't go out into the community where the mosquito is prevalent and these mosquitoes bite in the day, and you go back to work, you know, you're not quite well, you're still sick, you've still got symptoms, but you are now the host. You're the person who is going to give everybody else chikungunya. And so going out into the public, going to public functions, you know, you don't do that. You stay home, you're sick, you allow your body to do its job. It will fight the chikungunya. It's not going to kill you. You're going to be sick and you think you're dying, but you're not going to die in most cases unless you're a very tiny child or a very old person. Most healthy people will fight chikungunya without a problem. It can have some long-term effects, but not life-threatening. Yeah. And so it behoves you as an individual to be responsible and realize you don't want to spread this disease. You don't want to spread it to your family and your friends and your co-workers, etc. Stay home.
I think that's the key message that Dr. Shyamdev Prasad wanted us to get across to the viewers, is that the person who now has chikungunya is carrying the virus, and that is the way the mosquito is going to spread the virus, by biting that person and then traveling a relatively short distance to your close friends and family.
The actual range of most mosquitoes is a mile. It's 1 mile.
Correct.
You know, I like the outdoors and hunting and fishing. If I'm going to the interior where there's malaria and so forth, I make sure that if I'm staying outdoors, and I think I stay at least a mile from wherever there's people encamped, because that way I can't get malaria, okay, or chikungunya.
Well, we're coming down to the tail end of the program, and I'll deal with the last two questions. One question which was asked earlier, we have addressed, and somebody asked, can I use a suppository in fever? And we have addressed that. Yes, it is perfectly reasonable to use that, and it's a route of choice in some countries, and especially if you have a child who is not willing to take things by mouth, use the appropriate dose. This person is asking a little bit more of a technical question, and it's Ms. Prasad from Barbies. And he's asking, can a prolonged fever damage the hypothalamus? I think before we're going to answer that, we'll have to explain to the regular viewers where the hypothalamus is.
The hypothalamus is it's at the bottom of the brain. There's a little tiny little gland that's hanging down at the bottom of the brain called the pituitary gland. And quite close to that is the part of the brain that's called the hypothalamus. And it has a lot of functions. And even though it's very, very tiny, it does a lot of things. And it's involved in temperature control and things like that.
So quickly,
but a fever by itself will not damage it. Correct. The only time a fever is capable of damaging parts of your body is if it goes too high. And there are conditions and circumstances in which the temperature will go over 105. And that's something we should mention in terms of, as we're here. The minute you hit 105 degrees, the human cell cannot function properly. Okay? And as you start to go over that, it can't function. It will work, you'll die. And that's 105 and above, you're going to start to think of ice baths and things like that to put them in. Below that, as a simple criteria, if you have a thermometer that's accurate, the ranges are between less than 101 degrees. 101 degree down is a mild temperature. 100 and down. Between 101 and 102 is moderate temperature. 103 and 104, high temperature. Okay? So once you've got those ranges in mind, people get very, very worried if they see a temperature of, the child's temperature is 102. And I say, great. It means his immune system is working perfectly. Okay? As long as he's fine and he's okay otherwise. And so in terms of temperatures, those are guidelines. You know what is my best guideline? The backs of your hands. That's where most of your temperature sensors are on your hand, in your body, is on the backs of the hand. And that's why you see us, when you're touching a person's body, use the back of your hand to touch the fever. And you'll know, you put your hand on, it's warm. You put your hand on another child, you can roast an egg. Okay? It's very, very hot. Now, and that's all you need to know, that this is a very hot temperature, or no, this is a mild temperature. And the other criteria you're using, remember what I said? Look at the child. If he's ignoring it, you ignore it.
We've got about a minute and a half more, and I'd like just one quick answer to this question. When should the parent bring the child to the emergency room with a fever?
If you have looked at the program, you should be able to answer that now. You can use it as a guideline. It is what the child is doing. Okay? If you've got a child that you're giving fever medicine to, and the fever drops quite nicely after half an hour to an hour, and then he plays normally and he's okay, and then 4 to 6 hours later the fever goes back up again, and he's a little croaky, and you give him fever medicine and he's okay, then fine. That type of child, just wait. If you've got a child who you're giving fever medicine, you've given both medications, and he's still croaky, it's not moving, the temperature is dropping slightly, and he's not eating, he doesn't want to drink, and you can see that he's unwell, your instincts will guide you as a parent. He's unwell, bring him to me.
Well, I think we're about at the end of the program with time. I'd like to thank our viewers. I'm sure many of you have questions. Please remember, you can continue to interact with us through Facebook, WhatsApp, and those messages. We won't be answering you directly, but we'll follow up with you on our website. Dr. Jabour, at this point in time, thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.
And we look forward.
I hope it was helpful.
It was certainly helpful, and we look forward to seeing you in a few weeks when we'll be discussing asthma in children. So again,